Hi guys, Zero here, just doing a little vlog video. I'm going to start doing more of these vlog reaction review things, and post them on my channel, see what you guys think. Also, I started a new diet and exercise, so this is sort of my cool down, that's why I'm standing up. But anyways, I wanted to talk to you guys today about something special. It has something to do with this. I don't know how well you guys can see that on the camera, but maybe you can hear it. Well, if you look at this, you'll know what it is. Even though he didn't go to that form in what I'm about to talk about today, that sort of just shows off what I was talking about. I'll just leave that in there, actually. What this vlog is, reaction is about, and if you've already read the title, you know. I watched the Raw of Hero Taisen, or for those of you, Superhero Wars, Kamen Rider versus Super Sentai. Again, I don't speak Japanese, so I didn't know what they were saying, but I will tell you this, it was a very entertaining film, and I enjoyed it. Now, the reason I wanted to do this video, first of all, is just, you know, to give you my reactions, but also to talk about some of the controversy surrounding the movie. A lot of Japanese Toku fans were saying this movie was awful when it first came out, and were saying that it was bad and all this stuff. I can see where these complaints are coming from, but honestly, it's really not as bad as everybody says it is. There was one group in general who was actually working on their own Toku series, well, their own family Toku series, who pretty much bashed the entire movie right after they saw it. And I don't agree with anything they said. In fact, a lot of people didn't agree. Now, to be honest, too, I was excited for this film, but I didn't want to say I was really excited. I wasn't as excited for this as, say, Movie Wars Megamax, which is the O's and Foes team-up movie. But I did have a little bit of excitement for this, because, I mean, it's a big thing. It's Kamen Rider versus Super Sentai. The only times we've had that that I can think of was the Shinkenger episode, the Shinkenger World episodes of Kamen Rider Decade, or the Masked Rider team-up episodes for the start of Season 3 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That's all that I can think of off the top of my head. If I am leaving anything out, somebody will tell me. I'm not including Superhero Time intros. Those don't count, because those are just intros. So, this is the first time, not the first time, I guess the first time we've had Kamen Rider and Super Sentai kind of like in a movie, sort of, together, and it's all about the two groups in general. Like, I mean, Shinkenger and the Shinkenger World episodes of Decade, you got that, but those are just a couple episodes of Decade that they made. I'm going to try and make this as spoiler-free as possible, and this will be a long video. And I'm sorry if you hear my computer fan. I'm rendering the Tokusatsu corner right now. Check it out on rivercitygamers.wordpress.com. Anyways, enough of my random advertising. Let's talk about the movie. So, the biggest part about this movie, again, from what I gather, I don't speak Japanese, is Daizongyak, headed by Captain Marvelous from Gokaiger, aka Gokai Red, is in a war, battle, or game against Dai Shocker, being led by Tsukasa, aka Kamen Rider Decade. And from what I understand is that Captain Marvelous with Daizongyak is after the second greatest treasure in the universe, and he thinks in order to get that, I don't know if he thinks that or he heard that, that he has to collect the Kamen Rider powers, because he already collected the Sentai ones. They found the greatest treasure in the universe, and they didn't really need it, so I guess he forgot about the journey, not the... Unless that's part of the movie, again, no subtitles yet. It's the journey, not the destination. But he wants these powers. But Decade wants... Tsukasa wants the opposite. He wants the Super Sentai powers either to make Daishocker stronger, or to just become more powerful himself, because... Or to keep him out of bad hands, because who knows with Tsukasa? He's two-faced a lot of the time. I mean, we've seen that with the movies. So, with the other Decade movies. So, it's like, it starts off, Captain Marvelous is starting going after the Rider powers, while Decade's going after the Sentai powers. And while this is all going on, the rest of the Gokaigers are trying to stop Captain Marvelous from doing that, because it's not right. They're not his powers. They belong to the Earth. They don't belong to Dai Zongyak of anything. So, and Captain Marvelous is just like, screw you guys. I'm getting these powers myself. And that's where we go from there. Basically, it sounds like he doesn't care. He just wants the powers and he wants the treasure, and that's what being a pirate's about. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum, all that stuff. But amidst of all this, you've got some, you got people, you've got foes, Kisaragi Gentaro, you've got Kamen Rider O's, Hino Eiji, you've got people like, I'm trying to think of the subtitle side, you got the Go Busters, and the first third of the movie is about Captain Marvelous making his entrance and establishing Dai Zongyak, while also interacting with Kisaragi Gentaro, Kamen Rider foes, and because Kamen Rider foes is his first target. At the time of this movie's release, Kamen Rider foes was the newest rider, so why not go with the easiest target, right? Or the biggest target, I should say. And on the split side, Decade is going after the newest Sentai at the time, which was Tokumei Sentai Go Busters, so he's going after the Go Busters. So on one side, you've got Captain Marvelous and his army against foes and Meteor, and on the other side, you've got the Go Busters versus Decade. And there's some really cool fight scenes here. They're really cool fight scenes, and I'll get into more of those later. So in between all of this, there's the rest of the Gokaigers, which it later just becomes two of them, Joe and Don, or Don Dogor, or Hakase, Doc, and somehow Hina-chan from O's and Kaito, Kamen Rider D-End from Kamen Rider Decade, get amidst all this. And most of the movie, I'm going to be clear on this, most of the movie, or at least a good chunk of the movie, is about these four characters. One of the biggest things is, again, I'm trying not to get into too many spoilers, but Joe's breakdown through the whole movie, Joe, Gokai Blue, it was done really well. From what I understand, again, no subtitles, I know I keep saying that, but this is just my first reaction. You could feel, I didn't have to understand what he was saying, I could understand what he was, the character was feeling, because, in the state that they're in, it's a sense of powerlessness. He doesn't have any control over anything that's going on, and the way I interpret it is that he he is losing what he had tried to. He's losing something again, and he didn't want to lose that again. Where Kaito fits into this, he just happens to be around, and Hina-chan's just there. I actually don't know why she's there. So Kaito really is just there because the end. So he's the other rider from Decade, which I'd like to ask where the heck the new Kuga is in all this. But then again, I think this is dealing with real world with real, not real world I should say, but the continuity riders, basically the riders of the continuity worlds, not the parallel worlds that were in Decade. So I guess that makes sense why the Kuga from Decade isn't there, because he's a parallel world Kuga. But I honestly don't know why Hina-chan's there, other than the fact that she's the one who has Eiji's core medals, like the book. Okay, no Ankh in this movie, so this obviously takes place after O's, which is a plus, but at the same time, I would have liked to see Ankh again. But basically, it all boils down to a final battle. I don't know how they come to a conclusion, but they come to a conclusion that Riders and Rangers should work together. And there's a big battle against Rangers and Riders. Rangers and Riders on one side, and then all the villains from both factions on the other side. And it's just a big fight. And here's where I'm going to get into things. A couple things. First of all, battle scenes are fantastic. There was at least... In fact, every fight scene was like, my reaction was either, oh, cool, or like that was really awesome, or like, no way, like I didn't believe they were doing that. So, before I get into this, I know I'm not staying on track very well here, but let me just say, if you're going into this movie expecting it to be really good, like incredibly good, as a superhero movie, as a tokusatsu movie, it's not that good. It's really it doesn't have a storyline, a very overarching storyline. If they wanted to cater to the Toku fans, they would have had to make it like a maybe 2.5 hour movie. But they probably didn't have the budget for that, especially with so many guest stars. But that is one thing about the movie. It feels rushed. But I will say, you should go into this movie with the idea that it's going to be entertaining, not heavy on story or anything like that. Because this is a fan service movie. That's the only reason this movie exists. Because the 35th anniversary of Super Sentai and the 40th anniversary of Kamen Rider happened to be on the same time, and they were just like, excuse me, it was like a match made in heaven, so that's why they did it. It doesn't have a very intriguing story. Not all the characters are fleshed out. There's a lot to be desired. This is a movie for entertainment purposes only, and fan service. Those are the really only reasons you should watch this movie. If you're expecting a good story, you're not going to get it. If you're expecting lots of character development for all these characters that you know and love, you're not going to get it. You're only going to get it for a handful of them. Now, let me get to the first problem with this movie, the fight scenes. The fight scenes, great. Like I said, love them. Problem, they're too short. Again, this movie's about 1 hour and 20 minutes long, almost an hour and a half. That'd be pushing, I guess, 1 hour and 20 minutes long. There's lots of fight scenes, but they're quick. Remember how I said that the first third of the movie, excuse me, was about establishing, Dai Zongyak, Dai Shocker, what they're here for, and the initial fights. The foes, the fight with between foes and Gokai Red is short, as is the fight with the Go Busters and Decade. However, the fight with foes and Gokai Red is really, really good. If you like both Gokaiger and Kamen Rider foes, you're gonna love this fight, even if it is short. On the other side, the Decade fight is also really good. The thing with this is both of those fights cater to the other. Like, I'm gonna give just something away. When, like, for instance, Gokai Red changes into Maji Red with his Mobirate. So Foes counters with, okay, I'm gonna fight fire with fire. He goes into fire states and fights fire with fire. And another example, we switch to Decade versus the Go Busters. Decade switches to Kabuto and clocks up. Well, if any of you have seen Go Busters, Red Buster's special ability is that he his positive point, whatever they call it in the show, is he can run really fast, so he can keep up with the clock up. And I think like Decade just stops. He's like, okay, it's pointless. If you can keep up with me, whatever. But other thing, like, that's the thing about these fights. They're done with the intent of them not just being fair fights, but like fights you want to see. Like Maji Red versus Fire States. That's a fair fight that I want to see. In fact, the Decade fight against the Go Busters was one I was looking the most forward to, because I knew of Red Buster's special ability, and I knew that Decade had the cards for Fies and Kabuto. And if he uses Clock Up, I keep doing it, Red Buster should be able to keep up with him. The only thing is that is a disappointment is there's not a lot of Rider-on-Rider fights. The only Rider-on-Rider fights that we get to see are Kaito against other people for the most part. Again, I'm not going to get against other Riders for the most part. Again, I'm not going to get into it. If you want Rider-on-Rider action, haha, I can see you giggling, watch Kamen Rider Decade. And before the fanboys say anything, I thought Decade was pretty good. The ending kind of sucked, but the movies tried to fix it, but whatever. I thought it was a pretty good show, and it was a great way to introduce somebody to the franchise. If you haven't seen Kamen Rider yet, watch Decade. It'll introduce you without spoiling everything for you. It'll spoil little bits, but you're not going to know it's a spoiler, so it doesn't matter anyways. And they're not even big spoilers. So, oh my god, Wataru's part Fangar. It's not really a spoiler. Look at almost all the Kamen Rider shows. Oh, Fies is this, and Kabuto is that, and we've seen this a million times. They're not spoilers. Maybe the first time it's a spoiler, but it's not a spoiler. So, anyways, back to things. So, the other problem I have is that the amount of time that's stuck with Joe, Hakase, Hina, and Kaito. I'm not complaining because I want to see more Kaito and Joe, and I really like Joe's parts. And the whole thing between him and Kaito, they don't get along. But it was sort of the thing that was trying to hold the whole movie together, and it just felt kind of rushed. The other thing is, like, certain things like, why did you have Hino Eiji, or the actor for Hino Eiji, in this just so he can transform into O's and have a handshake near the end? I don't see what was the point. It's like they just put O's in here because his series had the 1000th episode, so we might as well throw him in. I didn't really see a point to having Eiji in the movie as a character, other than, of course, stuff like, you know, the Gokaiders getting the Rider keys, and that's not a spoiler. That was revealed in scans. But stuff like, I mean, again, having Gentaro, the Rider Club, they really only had like 1 or 2 scenes. There really was no point to them being in, like, main characters in the movie. The biggest parts of the movie was what was happening with the 4 people that I mentioned before, Johakusei, Kaito, and Hina, and what's going on with the two factions. It's basically them and Gokai Red versus Kamen Rider Decade. That's pretty much the entire movie. If you don't like Gokaiger or Decade, there's a very good chance you're not going to like this movie. But if you're like me and you liked both shows, this is a great movie. Also, I'm going to say that you're already going to have to be a fan of both Super Sentai and Kamen Rider to even want to see this movie. If you're coming into this to introduce yourself to everything, they don't explain anything. The movie pretty much just moves like that, because they've got to put all these people in it, all these people in the movie, and they got to go like that. One other thing I want to say is that the Sentai don't get a lot of time. There's a lot of Sentai. I know that. There's 35 seasons, and there's only like 20-something of Kamen Rider, I think. So there's a lot more seasons of Sentai over Kamen Rider, even though Kamen Rider's been around longer, because they had a break halfway through. But, in the 90s, I guess. But, they're like, if you're a bigger fan of Sentai, there's not a lot here. Unless you're a fan of mostly Gokaiger, and you don't care that much to see the other Sentai, you're gonna see them, you're not gonna see much with them. But there was one thing that I thought was really neat. This brings us to another point. The Imagines from Den-O, again, barely in the movie. I don't know why they even bothered. I guess because Den-O is their Toei's gravy train, so you gotta include them at least one more time, and it gives them another movie to add to their plaque of 9-10 movies now for Den-O since the series ended. But there was a funny scene between Urataros. By the way, all of Den-O's forms are in this except for Climax form, Wing form, and Liner form. The 4 main forms are in this, and the Imagines are them. Funny, Urataros and Geki Yellow, there's a really funny scene between them. The final battle, this is what I want to get into. This was done fairly well. Again, they're quick little shots because they've got to get a lot in there, but the way the Sentai and the Kamen Riders work together is crazy. One of my favorites, and I was surprised about this, was how well Hibiki, and I can't remember what team it was. Hibiki and I think the Maji Rangers? I think? I can't remember. I just remember really liking that because Hibiki's not that popular of a rider. In fact, he's one of the least popular riders. But he did some badass stuff in this movie. And then we gotta talk about the Megazord fight, which I'm not gonna say too much about because there is a very big spoiler near the end of the movie about that. But I just gotta say, I think the Super Tengen Toppa Giga Drill Breaker has a rival in the set of awesome moves. The Sentai Rider Space Rocket Drill Kick, or Galaxy Rocket Drill Kick, is pretty badass. I'd like to see that go against the Super Tengen Toppa Giga Drill Breaker. If you've never seen Gurren Lagann, you don't know what I'm talking about. Or Gurren Lagann, you don't know what I'm talking about. But my overall thoughts on Hero Taisen is it's a flawed film. It's short for what they were trying to get across, but I don't think it's a bad film. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's all that good. It's just okay. It's really something for fan service and entertainment, and that's about it. And you'll get one of those two out of this. Again, don't expect too much. The fan service is in small bursts, and the entertainment value is going to be based on not only how much you enjoy both Kamen Rider and Sentai, but how you like how they mesh together. And I have to say, this movie kept me entertained, and I loved the fan service ride. So I have to say it's a movie you should check out if you're a fan of Kamen Rider and Super Sentai. And for God's sakes, I'm going to say this now, Toku fans, turn off the critic switch. Okay? This is going to be one of those movies where you have to critique, where you're probably going to feel like you have to critique the hell out of it. I'm talking to the people who can't get over new Kamen Riders being a little more kid-friendly, and the people who are Sentai purists, people who don't like Power Rangers. This movie, from a critical point, you will hate. I'm going to say that right now. But if you just turn off the critic switch, just sit back and enjoy the ride, you will enjoy the movie. And it will be entertained. You will be entertained. I'm sorry I got into a bit of a rant there, but I hate Toku fans. Sorry, I hate Toku fanboys and fangirls. They piss me off. They give the rest of us a bad name. So, anyways, that's my thoughts on Superhero Taisen. Check it out if you're a fan of Kamen Rider Super Sentai. And here's hoping we get more crossovers between these franchises in the future and other Toku franchises, as we've seen with Gabon and Sentai, because some good stuff has come out of it, and I think this is just the beginning, guys. It's only going to get bigger from here. Anyways, this is Zero. I'm out, and I'm just a passing through Kamen Rider. Remember that.